Yeah, what's good, y'all? It's your man, the Bigga P, and here's another YouTube episode talking about first Chavez-Lee from last weekend, and then the two Showtime fights from last night. Now, Chavez and Lee. Chavez Jr. I've never been a fan of Chavez Jr. There's something about him. He's definitely not his old man. His old man is one of the all-time greats in the sport. Chavez Jr. I still feel has gotten pretty much a lot of help, and I'm not talking about a good type of help. I'm talking about the certain fights he takes and certain decisions that should have went the opposite way. Simply because he's a Chavez, he's a name, and in boxing that that generates money. Um, But this fight with Andy Lee did definitely show an improvement. He basically showed his father's chin and pretty good power, and pretty much he just overpowered Andy Lee. It was good. It was a good hard 7 rounds, and that was his best career performance to date. Now Andy Lee, he has the boxing skills to actually be something more than he is. I mean, you would think someone that's trained by Emmanuel Stewart would not have the urge to mix it up all the time, but he does. I mean, if he gets in trouble, or he feels that he has no problem just throwing caution to the wind and start slugging it out. The thing with Andy Lee is he's not all that durable. I mean, he has some pop. I mean, but when he faces a durable fighter, like for instance, the fight with Brian Vera. Vera ended up stopping him in 7 rounds in an upset, and then was it McEwen? McEwen had him in absolute trouble, and then and Lee was actually able to, eventually, punch him out. But he was not able to do this to Chavez. Chavez was the bigger fighter, and I thought it was a winnable fight because the judges themselves had I think was it all 3 cards. They were all for Lee anyways. But Andy Lee's just not that durable to take punishment, especially from a bigger, heavier puncher. So hopefully, he's actually able to come back from that. Hopefully, come back from his mistakes and just learn how to box more instead of trying to mix it up all the time. For Chavez Jr., like I said, it was a career best performance, and now I'm definitely looking forward to him facing the true middleweight champion of the world, Sergio Martinez. This is a fight that is a long time coming, and this will prove to me whether or not Chavez Jr. Has the goods to be something in the sport or not. Another thing I want to address with Chavez Jr. is just the fact that I personally don't think he's even a true middleweight. I mean, he isn't. I mean, he weighs in 159, 160 at the weigh-in, but he comes in the ring a cruiser. I don't think rehydrating 3 divisions up is healthy or fair. I mean, that's just how I feel. I mean, but if he gets away with it, he gets away with it. I mean, they don't have the weigh-ins. They don't have the weigh-ins of the day of the fight or the day before the fight or how they used to have it. I just really think it's just an unfair advantage, and it's something that lacks discipline. Another thing too with this post-fight drug test, I don't know if he actually took one for after the Lee fight. Some say he did, some say he didn't. But I know he's had a history of doing that. I just think something is really off about how he takes off weight and how he puts it back on immediately. I mean, it's not the first time. I know this was in full effect with the Rubio fight too. But yes, I'll be looking forward to seeing Chavez Jr. Try to prove his mettle as a fighter. He's had 40 something for 46, 47 fights or whatever, and hopefully he does pan out as a boxer, so Arum and company will stop coddling him. Now, the Showtime fights. The opener was Matthysse and Soto. Great great fight. Five brutal rounds. You know, I was blown away because I knew Matthysse had something to prove. Because in my mind, Matthysse is still undefeated. The losses to Zab Judah, which was, I mean, he put Judah down. I mean, he shouldn't have not lost that fight. I mean, at the most, it probably should have been a draw. You know, but he didn't lose the fight. And then even more aggravating was the fight with Alexander, which I know I had him my own cards that he'd be Alexander, but he got shafted. I mean, after those two decisions, I would think that he wouldn't want to fight in America again. But he came back, and he had something to prove, and he did that. In the earlier rounds, though, Soto was showing hard. Soto was catching him. I think actually managed to wobble him a little bit. I think it was either in the first or the second round. And then, slowly but surely, Mathisse's pressure just broke him down. Those body punches were brutal. Every time that I saw Matthysse hit him Soto in the ribs, I could literally just see the fight and just slowly, disappearing. And then afterwards, that barrage in the end of the fifth round that finally sent Soto to the canvas completely out. That was beautiful, especially that final right hand. Now I don't know what the referee was thinking, letting that fight continue after that. Soto was holding onto the ropes. I mean, he couldn't stand on his own 2 feet. Now that fight the referee should have waved it off there because he was clearly out on his feet. But they waited until he stumbled back into the corner, where his cornerman clearly saw that he was completely out of it, and they stopped the fight for him. So yeah, it was a wonderful, wonderful fight. One could say, I mean, it's probably it's definitely a legit fight of the year candidate to me. Matthysse is a welcome division to the 140 division. I mean, the prospect of fun fights with someone like Maidana, Alvarado, or even Brandon Rios, those would be pay-per-view worthy fights. I mean, if not, maybe not in the main event level yet, but certainly on any undercard. And I would definitely be looking forward, to more of Matthisse's fights. And then the last fight was Lopez and Victor Ortiz. I thought personally when this fight was announced that Lopez would have been was in and over his head. Good fighter, and yes, I saw that robbery. I remember I commented him losing that fight to Jesse Vargas, which he shouldn't have lost. I personally don't think he lost that fight, but I thought, and he was a good fighter, but I thought he was in over facing someone like Ortiz, who can actually punch, and is actually has pretty damn good boxing skills. But you can't underestimate heart. You can't. And boxing, sometimes that's all you need to carry you to victory. But it didn't look that way at first. I mean, the fight was brutal. It was back and forth action, especially round two. Round two was a candidate for round of the year. It still didn't surpass round 9 of Lopez and Salido too. Because that round, but it came close because both of them got rocked. And then a couple rounds later, I was aggravated when I saw Lopez when Lopez got hit in the back with a clear as day rabbit punch. I'm thinking to myself, okay, here we go again. Ortiz is starting to lose control of himself. Now, for someone who claims not to be a dirty fighter, Ortiz has these moments where he just loses control of himself, and it's frustrating. I was thinking to myself, please don't let this fight end. Don't let the fight end like this. Lopez, being a man, got himself together and got his wits about him and continued fighting. Got major props for that. And then the fights continued, and Ortiz was just taking these uppercuts repeatedly. And it was one thing to take one uppercut, it's fine, but he was taking them repeatedly, and they're not like short uppercuts. They was like very telegraphed uppercuts. I'm thinking to myself, he shouldn't be taking these shots. I mean, Lopez may be the lesser puncher, but no fighter should be taking uppercuts like that. And I feel that laid the foundation for what happened. I believe it was the 8th or 9th round when Lopez, cracked him again with the left hand, which broke his jaw. and it was, it was, I was like, wow, because I was wondering because his mouth was open. I was just thinking he was just tired because usually when you see broken jaws, I mean, there's different variations of it. Some are just like a slight fracture, and then some are like Arthur Abraham against Edison Miranda, where it's so grotesque and you're spitting up blood when it's too damn serious. And but I noticed, yeah, he was breathing. I thought he was breathing hard, and that was the reason why he was getting. He was like trying to move away was because he was tiring. um, but at the end of that ninth round, it was funny because his corner was telling him to fight on, but Ortiz wanted it stopped. Now, obviously, I never had my jaw broke before, and I would think, I mean, as a fighter, I mean, I know some fighters can continue with a broken jaw, some fighters can't. I can't say he quit, but it would have gone a long way for his reputation if Ortiz was actually able to continue to fight with the broken jaw and either go the distance or actually end matters himself before the bell with the broken jaw. That would have done wonders for his reputation, and and to shake that quitter label off him. But unfortunately, it wasn't to be, and Lopez won it on an upset. And I'm very happy. I'm very happy for him because now at least it gets him to the mix of things. Probably get him a couple paydays. Now as for Ortiz, him losing the way he did messes up the Canelo fight for September 15th. So Canelo is pretty much like cursed again. First is the Williams, and then there was Kirkland, and now Canelo. What needs to happen is I think that Canelo just needs to give my man Law a shot at 15 so Laura can school him and beat that ass real proper like. That's just how I feel. But well, that's for another conversation. But for Ortiz, this is a clear setback, and it's frustrating to watch because the man has all the talent in the world. He's I would say tough. He's an exciting fighter. He has all the physical tools, but his head case is not there mentally. And this, if he continues to fight, is going to continue to haunt him. I don't know if he'll ever wake up from if he'll ever wake up from it, but you want. I mean, I want Ortiz to do good, but there's just something about him that he just like mentally just collapses, and you get what you get from him. I mean, that shot with him at the sink, lying there with his face down. I mean, it was probably one of the saddest things I've ever seen a boxer do. Just lying there, knowing that knowing he's defeated, and the fact that his long-term money future is in jeopardy. But what can you do? Like I said, hopefully he'll rebound. I mean, he'll probably be on ESPN too. You see him on Friday Night Fights or whatever like that. For Ortiz, I mean, as long as he has his reputation, as long as you know that he has the power, I mean, he'll get fights. But I just don't see an elite level for Ortiz again, unless he ever gets his mind right. All right. And Lopez, of course, was gracious in defeat. I personally liked the way he said, he's the Mexican Paul Williams. That brought a smile to my face. So I'll definitely be looking forward to seeing him in fights on Showtime, on pay-per-views or whatever. And speaking of those networks, Showtime this year is definitely shitting on HBO as far as fights this year. I mean, pretty much the fight of the year candidates in the U.S. are from Showtime. And if it gets to this, I may just end up actually buying the fight rather than hooking up my instead of just watching it on clear streams though on my TV. I may actually pay for that. I may actually start paying for that channel again. HBO could really take a lesson, a page on how to actually do fights and actually have commentators, talk about the fights rather than do what they do. Well, anyway, that's my video for today. I'm about to take a look, see if I actually got those fights downloaded, and go start my day doing something else. All right, you guys take it easy. All right, peace.